More importantly, the FBI, by saying that the organization was in disarray, poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple. I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. At one point, the Attorney General had directed me not to call it an investigation, but instead to call it a matter.
And
my only goal was to make sure he was laid to rest with honors. That honor has been insulted. Only one possible motivation remains for all of those involved who have covered up Fast and Furious: to conceal their own shame and disgrace.
Here. Look. You thought draining the swamp in Texas was bad? Try bringing the swamp to New York City. Waters World begins right now. Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. The left's credibility crisis, that's the subject of tonight's Waters Words. How many times have the American people been told one thing about Donald Trump only to have it been proven wrong? Let's start with the most obvious, the election.
In no part of your mind or brain can you imagine Donald Trump standing up one day and delivering a State of the Union address?
Well, I can imagine it in a Saturday night skit.
Right now, Mr. Trump, to answer your call for political honesty, I just want to say, you're not going to be president, all right? It's been fun. It's been great. I love you. But come on, buddy.
Fresh off that embarrassing prediction, Donald Trump, quote, hired a group of prostitutes to defile Moscow hotel room where Obama slept. Sensational dossier claims. The media pushed that hoax, but it turned out to be fake news. And on February 14th, the New York Times had splashed this so-called scoop on its front pages. Trump campaign aides have repeated contacts with Russian intelligence. James Comey was asked about that specific article at this week's Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, and he said, quote, "It was not true." He went on to say this about whether there was any obstruction of justice.
Did the president at any time ask you to stop the FBI investigation into Russian involvement in the 2016 U.S. elections?
Not to my understanding, no.
Did any individual working for this administration, including the Justice Department, ask you to stop the Russian investigation?
No.
This is the president speaking. I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. You don't know of anyone that's ever been charged for hoping something.
I don't, as I sit here.
Speaking of James Comey, it was revealed that he was the source of the leak that sparked the Trump obstruction of justice narrative. Lawyers now looking into whether those leaks violated his FBI employment contract. Also keep in mind, the only item never leaked was information that supported the president.
The only thing that's never been leaked is the fact that the president was not personally under investigation, despite the fact that both Democrats and Republicans and the leadership of Congress knew that.
I don't know.
So now the Trump collusion and obstruction of justice theories have been debunked. You don't believe me? Even Chris Matthews said this about collusion.
The assumption of the critics of the president, of his pursuers, you might say, is that somewhere along the line in the last year, the president had something to do with colluding with the Russians. And yet what came apart this morning was that theory.
Is it any wonder the American people have lost faith in the mainstream media? According to the latest online Harvard-Harris poll, 65% of voters believe there is a lot of fake news in the media. So as the media loses credibility, the Democrats' unrelenting and conspiratorial anti-Trump agenda has begun to blow up in their face. The Democrats' push for Russia investigations has resulted now in Republicans expanding the probe to include unmasking of Trump campaign figures. Obama officials Susan Rice, James Clapper, and Samantha Power have all been slapped with subpoenas. And this week, we learned the two most high-profile leakers are James Comey and a nasty anti-Trump 25-year-old NSA contractor named Reality Winner. Then the Comey testimony actually boomeranged on none other than Obama Attorney General Loretta Lynch and the Hillary Clinton campaign. Here is what the former FBI director said.
At one point, the Attorney General had directed me not to call it an investigation, but instead to call it a matter, which confused me and concerned me.
Is everybody paying attention? Testimony shows that there was no undue influence by Trump people on the FBI investigation, but there was undue influence by Obama people on the FBI investigation. Everything we've been told about this entire story has turned out to be false, or the opposite of how it was sold. And in the president's first reaction to the hearing, he offered to testify himself.
Yesterday showed no collusion, no obstruction. So it was just an excuse. But we were very, very happy. And frankly, James Comey confirmed a lot of what I said.
This is why the left-wing media has been reduced to beheading, saying the N-word, and swearing at the president. So here the Democrats and the media stand angry, untrustworthy, and empty-handed. It's no wonder they remain out of touch and out of power. Joining me now with his reaction to Director Comey's testimony, Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Jason Chaffetz. I don't think this was a very good hearing for Director Comey.
I mean, assuming that he's telling 100% of the truth, one of the most troubling parts of this is that he goes to the Loretta Lynch, asks permission if he can talk about the fact that Hillary Clinton is indeed under an investigation. And then the Attorney General says, no, don't use that word, use another word. The Director Comey admits that that was not truthful, that was not an accurate representation, yet he does it anyway. Yeah. That bothers me, that he did it anyway, even though he was directed and he was supposed to be a man of great integrity and going to call it just like he is. And I think what Donald Trump did, what President Trump did was just very reasonable. He was proactively told by Director Comey that he's not under investigation. I think it's a natural reaction to say, can you say that out loud? Can we just lift this cloud? I mean,
yes, because I mean that's been dogging the administration for like the entire first part of the term. So I wouldn't see any reason why he wouldn't want him to say that. So he takes this memo, Director Comey, and he shops it out to his buddy at Columbia, this Ivy League school up here in New York that we're all familiar with. He leaks it to the press. Is that okay for someone to do? Is he in trouble for doing that potentially?
Well, he's created a lot of legal problems for himself because people like myself, I'm the chairman of the Oversight Committee, there would be very investigative bodies within both the House and the Senate. Remember, he testified that after his first meeting with Donald Trump, he went down into his car and was I believe, a classified laptop, pounded out some notes. Well, those notes are somewhere. And when I had a private conversation with Director Comey before he testified, I asked him very specifically, where are these so-called notes? Because remember when the New York Times article came out, nobody ever saw it. Well, he wouldn't tell me. He wouldn't tell me if he had them. He wouldn't tell me if the Department of Justice had them. These are federal records.
Yeah, it's a federal record. They'll get their hands on it eventually, unless he wipes the server clean like Hillary did. Now, let's get on to the real story, the leakers. Comey was one of the leakers, and he's not the only one sharing confidential information. As we know, the 25-year-old, the NSA contractor, and Bernie Sanders supporter, reality winner, got popped this week for copying and sending classified material to a news outlet. So that's just two people, but I have a list of dozens of other leaks. You know, the Manchester bombing information, Kushner's conversations, President Trump's conversations with world leaders. I mean, this has got to be the beginning of a very aggressive anti-leak campaign, don't you think?
No, there's classified information for a reason, and you can't, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, just because you want it to get out doesn't mean you have permission to give it to a reporter or put it out there onto the internet. You just can't do that. So if you feel the need to share something with Congress, you can do that in a legally lawful way, but you can't just put it out there. And I'm not suggesting this with Director Comey, but somebody like Reality Winner, a 25-year-old contractor, if the story is true and the allegation is true, you got to put handcuffs on her and she should be in jail.
I mean, not only do they have to go after her, but they really have to start ratcheting this thing up. I mean, more shoes should drop on leakers soon, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've been begging the administration, obviously the Obama administration, to look at people's social media profile before you give them security clearances.
Right.
Look at their social media before you give them visas. But if you're going to be given the nation's secrets, you should certainly go look at what they're pounding out online and seeing how compatible that is with keeping some secrets of the nation.
Yeah, well, you know, they were ignoring the social media profile. Also, something ignored this week. The report from your committee that said President Obama and his AG, Eric Holder, covered up the murder of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry during the Fast and Furious investigation. What are we going to see with this? Is this officially going to be reopened, and are people going to have to pay a price here? Because this looks really bad.
Look, we have been pounding on the administration for 7+ years. We've been in the courts trying to extract the documents. We know that the Attorney General, Eric Holder, almost on a daily basis was getting briefings of this, but they're still holding these documents. And a little disappointed, quite frankly, that thus far in the Trump administration, they haven't released these documents either. But we had another hearing. We put out another 250-page report, and the family has got a right to understand what happened. We have a right in Congress to know what happened so it doesn't happen again. But it is a great travesty, and we're still on it.
Yeah, we actually have some sound from some of the family members. Let's take a look at what they said right here.
I believe that if Brian Terry and his team had known this information, chances are Brian would be alive today.
Only one possible motivation remains for all of those involved who have covered up Fast and Furious. That is to conceal their own shame and disgrace, quite possibly, their crime.
And the information they were talking about there was the fact that these, Mexican criminals were packing heavy artillery. So when they go up against someone like Brian Terry, he's not armed to the teeth like these guys are, and that cost him his life. Give you the last word.
Well, look. Yeah, I mean, the Obama administration knowingly and willingly gave the drug cartels nearly 2,000 weapons, mostly AK-47 type weapons. You got to know that if you're the Border Patrol, that suddenly these weapons, heavy weapons, that's what you're going to be going up against.
All right, well, listen, good luck, Congressman, in this investigation. We all want answers, and I think the family deserves the truth. And later in the show, Brian Terry's cousin is going to join Water's World exclusively. What can the British election tell us what to expect here in America? The leader of Brexit, Nigel Farage, joins me next with the answers. Then, safe spaces taking over college campuses. Water's World speaks to a man who's going to make these safe spaces a little more dangerous. Coming up. What does that mean for Brexit? And what does that mean for America? The man who's now threatening to get back into politics and save Brexit, former UK Independence Party leader and Fox News contributor Nigel Farage, joins me. So, Nigel, it seems to be that the Brits are a little ahead of the curve when it comes to populism and these movements. And I think the Brexit vote kind of foreshadowed the Trump election here in America. This last election that you guys just had, what does that mean for us over here stateside? Any predictions?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, it's good news that Theresa May stays on as Prime Minister, although weakened, perhaps not for long.
Because Theresa May is a member of the Conservative Party.
The Prime Minister, that would have been a disaster, because he is fundamentally a Marxist who is anti-American. So, hooray that it's not Corbyn. What is interesting...
Is Corbyn like the Bernie Sanders of the UK? Is that what we're dealing with?
Oh, no, Bernie Sanders is like a conservative compared to Jeremy Corbyn, believe me. I mean, this guy is way out on the left, but what he does have is a bit of personality, and what he did do was campaign in a very open style. So May's back, but I suspect that she's so badly damaged by this election that she might not last long.
So May was on the cover of Charlie Hebdo, beheaded. What do you understand that to represent, that image?
There are times when publications step over the line, and I think Charlie Hebdo in this case have done something that I think is in really poor taste. It may politically be correct, but it's very poor taste.
It looks like they Kathy Griffined themselves, probably referring to the terrorist attack. I mean, that had a huge impact I would assume, on this recent election there. A tweet was sent out, speaking of these attacks, by Jemima Khan, who appears to be some British media personality. She says, quote, "In the United Kingdom, you're more likely to be killed by dogs, average 18 deaths per year, than terrorism, 1.4 deaths per year. Fear-mongering doesn't help." Is she trying to say that the dogs are more dangerous than ISIS?
Jemima Khan is a well-known public figure in this country, and for her to apologise for what's been happening, I think is disgraceful. Look, we have now had 3 terrorist incidents in this country in the space of 9 weeks, and the pace of these attacks in the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe is growing, and I want, and we need, senior Muslim figures like Jemima Khan to condemn this and to say that decent Muslim people in Britain are going to come together with all the rest of us to stamp out these evil people.
All right, well, America and Great Britain have a very special relationship. We just want to make sure you guys are safe and protected. And Nigel, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Coming up, true to his word, my buddy T-Roy of Swamp People came for his first visit to New York. And let's just say the swamp strikes back. But up next, will safe spaces in colleges end up destroying more PC? It seems students are more concerned about running into their safe spaces than facing reality. Radio talk show host Dennis Prager and comedian Adam Carolla ask if colleges and universities are ruining America in a new film, No Safe Spaces. Dennis joins me now. So, Dennis, first of all, explain to the audience in one sentence what a safe space is.
It is a place that universities around America have created for students to retreat to if they are disturbed by a visiting speaker. And needless to say, that speaker is invariably someone who does not take a left-wing view. That is enough to traumatize a student, and then they retreat to rooms. And I know this will sound amazing, which is why we are making this film.
Yes.
In order to bring to the American public and the world attention what is happening, because you would not believe it otherwise. You retreat to a room. These are college students.
Okay.
You're given Play-Doh.
No.
You watch movies of frolicking kittens.
No. Are you serious?
Yes. You are given hot chocolate. And you are given stuffed animals.
Can I be honest with you? I mean, it doesn't sound that bad. You know, I might retreat to a safe space if I had hot chocolate, too.
Yeah.
There's a poll.
No, right.
It says, do you agree with safe spaces on college campuses? It's split. 37% no, 36% yes, 25% are indifferent. I think most college students are indifferent by nature. But it doesn't even seem controversial. That's probably the scariest thing, because to us, it sounds insane.
That's right. It's not controversial because the university, which was once there to make boys into men and girls into women, in other words, into adults, is now a place to keep your child infantilized.
Yeah.
This is the scariest part of it. And the only thing I want to modify is I think we have to drop the word PC. It's not PC, it's left. And we have to identify the source of the problem, because that's what it means. There is no right PC. Conservative students don't have safe spaces with regard to all of their left-wing professors who say how awful America is, for example.
Yeah, it's the conservatives that need the safe spaces on college campuses.
But they don't exist as such, which is fine. So that means that the average conservative kid will leave much more mature and capable of dealing with life than the average kid on the left. That's the irony.
That's true.
They are ruining their own.
Yeah, they're much more resilient when you have to face adversity.
Yes, exactly.
Let me show you what things may look like if we continue to go down this left-wing road. Roll a little clip here.
We judge people based on racial origin and history of oppression.
We call it the progressive stack.
I'm Black.
I'm Hispanic. I'm Asian.
I'm a student at Utopia University.
Okay, so I think we may be already too far down this road, because I'm looking at some of these crazy examples that are going on. In Harvard, No more library fines because that
That's
makes
right.
students nervous.
50 cents a day.
Yes, that's
it's 50
just
cents a day.
Traumatizing. And then you have black students at UCLA want their own safe spaces. And in California, there's a bill where they're creating safe spaces for illegal immigrants. Really? I mean, just let us know and they can round them up, right?
As my colleague in this, Adam Carolla, says, there's no way to parody because it has already reached the level of such absurdity. But it's not funny. That's the problem. That's why we need people's help to make this. Hollywood will not make this film, but we are, and people should go to nosafespaces.com, see this trailer, see what we're doing, and help us make it. Because I think it could have a tremendous impact. Americans don't really know what's happening. They only know this. They've paid $40,000 a year, and their kid comes home and has contempt for them. That's what they know.
That's an expensive contempt right there.
Yes, exactly.
And listen, Waters World is a safe space, so if anybody ever is troubled or traumatized, they can come to Waters World and feel happy and at home. Dennis, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Republicans looking back into the Fast and Furious scandal. Wait until you hear what they found. Up next, Brian Terry's cousin joins me exclusively with the family's reaction to these new damning allegations. And later, Swamp People's T. Roy is in New York City and conducts some Waters World interviews on his own with some snowflakes. You're not going to want to miss it.
Please, Don. Live from America's News headquarters, good evening, everyone. I'm Julie Banderas. An investigation underway into the deaths of 3 U.S. soldiers killed in Afghanistan. A senior U.S. official tells Fox News 3 Army Rangers were killed in an insider attack, an Afghan soldier opening fire and killing the Americans. Another U.S. soldier was also wounded. The Taliban is claiming responsibility. The group says in a statement, a Taliban loyalist joined the Afghan army to target foreign services and forces. A day of protests and clashes across dozens of American cities. Anti-Sharia law demonstrators confronted by counter-protesters, shoving matches, and dozens of arrests reported across the country. Austin, Chicago, New York City, among the cities holding anti-Sharia law rallies. Act for America organizing those protests. The group says the strict Islamic law is incompatible with Western democracy. I'm Julie Banderas. Now back to Waters World.
Have you apologized to the family of Brian Terry?
I have not apologized to them, but I certainly regret what happened.
Would you like to apologize today for this program that went so wrong, that took the life of a United States law enforcement agent?
I certainly regret what happened to Agent Brian Terry. It is not fair, however, to assume that the mistakes that happened in Fast and Furious directly led to the death of Agent Terry.
That was Eric Holder back in 2011, refusing to apologize to the family of slain Border Patrol agent Brian Terry, who was murdered by Mexican cartel members using the weapons that the Obama administration let loose. But a damning new report released by the House Oversight Committee suggests Holder and the DOJ withheld information from Congress and Terry's family about the investigation, even calling the Terry family a nuisance. Joining me now with his reaction, Brian Terry's cousin and chairman of the Brian Terry Foundation, Robert